So tonight I want to talk about zizzes, clunks, rattles, and ticks. So I go back to a party. I was at a party, I don't know, this is 1980 down the street from where my late wife and I lived. And the gal says, "Oh, you're a mechanic?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, when I go around a corner, my front wheel goes arp, 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 arp." I said, "Sounds like a faulty seal." I got her on that one. But since then, I have tried to define and list out all the different noises that you might hear in the car. So I have several that I want to talk about. And after that, we'll go into the chat section. So we've got gearbox noises. There's always the swishing. You let your foot off the clutch, the lay gear begins to turn, the oil gets thrown all over, there's a lot of stuff getting thrown around, and there's a shh sound out of your gear lever, right? And it goes away when you depress the pedal. So that's just a normal swish. Isn't bad at all. If you don't like the swish, it might be because you've got a wooden gear shift knob, and that will amplify the swish. Okay? The factory gear shift knobs almost always muted that. When you're using the clutch, if you start the car up, it's cold, depress the clutch, you hear this, whoa, what is going on? So you put it back in neutral, it's just fine. You try it again, and but you drive it because you got to drive it, and after a couple miles, after it warms up, it goes away. Doesn't make that sound until it's cold again. So that is a spigot bush on the back of the crankshaft that's been damaged in installation and is grabbing the first motion shaft too tightly. And as a result, um, the first motion shaft and the rubs against the spigot bush, not when the whole thing's turning at the same speed, when your foot's off the clutch, but when it's turning at different speeds. Now we had to replace a couple of them like that. That's real frustrating. If you've got a growling noise, just a growling, rumbling noise in the gearbox that evidences itself in first, second, and third, but not fourth. So first almost is always noisy. You got chip teeth, you got spur teeth on T-types and MGAs. The MGB, all synchro box, MGC box has helical first gear, so that's nice. But the other all the other ones, the older ones and midgets, and got spur gears, and they're just plain noisy in first gear. The picture that I sent out on the constant contact showed a lay gear, and you look at it and you go, "Oh yeah, okay, it's worn." Well, my gosh, you try to drive that, you wouldn't use first. You'd start in second. It just sounds terrible. That little bit of wear looks like a little bit. So if you get a chip off a tooth, oh my gosh, tick, 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 when you're backing up or going forward, you can hear it. I had one customer with a leg T type gearbox, and one of the first gear teeth had been broken off, just completely broken off, lying in the bottom of the gearbox. And that thing, well, you couldn't move it through first gear. It sounded so horrible. It just tremendous amount of noise. Dashboard noises. Okay. So there's a lot of buzzes that you can get sometimes, and they might go zzz, something like that. And sometimes only in a certain RPM range. So if it's only in a certain RPM range, like it happens at 2,800, 5,600, um, then that zzz, there's something on the engine that's loose, and it very often is the heat shield. Both the HS and HIF carburetors, those heat shields are always flexing. The midget shields are held in place with just a minute. Just a minute. There we go. The midget heat shields are held in place with brackets and they don't vibrate, and they're thicker. But the MGB ones are pretty thin, a lot of stamped roll edges with no gussets welded in them. Why would you do that? But they vibrate, they work harden, and then they crack. But as they're vibrating and they begin to crack, you get those pieces. Zzz, it's it's pretty intense, and sometimes you can't find it. If you've got a problem underneath the bonnet, and you've got some kind of zzz in there, you get your friend to sit in the driver's seat and bring it up to the RPM where it's making the rumbling, the zizzing, the squeaking, the screeching, and just grab everything underneath the bonnet, just start pushing it, moving it, and try to figure out what's making the noise. When you turn the car off, 1973 through 1980, you turn the car off, and anywhere from about a second to 10 seconds after you've shut the car off, there's a thunk, thunk behind the glove box. What is this? You open the glove box door because it bugs you. You start the car up, turn it off. You feel it in there, but it's not really there. No, it's under the bonnet. It's the anti-run-on valve, and it's opening back up. It's when you turn the key off and you've got oil pressure, the anti-run-on valve engages and stops the engine from dieseling. Wonderful system. Passive, it's great. If you've got it 1973 through 1980, don't disable it. It's a real nice. It doesn't work with Weber's. No place to put the vent on. Anyway, that valve when it closes makes that big thunk. That's that noise you hear behind there. 77 through 80s, especially. I don't know why. It has to do with the clearance between the column covers and the steering wheel. But those things, you go to turn the wheels, It's like, oh my God, please. And so you take a hold of the column covers, you push them one way, and then it's someplace else. It's still rubbing. It's just, oh man, just drives you crazy. You got to take the column covers off and get everything all clean and the wires all set. And there's usually some mechanical problem why it's larger than it should be. But that'll drive you nuts. So you got rear end noises, and you might get a clunk at any speed, going over speed bumps, or big changes in the pavement. You get a clunk out of the back end. It might be because the shocks are loose. Hardly ever happens, but that can be a clunk. If you get a clunk at any speed between acceleration and deceleration, and you've got wire wheels, clonk, 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 you hear that over and over and over, and that has to do with the how close the splines are running on the rear hub and the rear wheels. So there's lots and lots and lots of talk. How can you tell if if the spline in your car is shot? Well, if the whole thing's loose, it is shot. But if you want a number, you put a number to it. You want to look at it. Then you can take a pair of calipers and measure across the splines, and that number should be 2.450 inches. 2.450. When it gets to 2.440, it's starting to get just 10 thousandths, but it's starting to get pretty worn. And at 2.430, oh boy, it's real loose. Now you got to get down to 290 before the hub will skate on the inside of the wheel. But I've seen that a couple of times. You come up to a stop sign, you hit the brakes, rotor stops, wheel doesn't. Wheel walks the spinner off. Um, uh, Very odd. Um, a clunk at any speed between acceleration and deceleration can be the drive shaft, because you can end up with play in there. or it can be the differential. That's the clunk that you hear when you accelerate and decelerate, decelerate, clunk, clunk from the rear axle. It's uh, almost all the cars do it to some degree or another. It doesn't hurt anything. If it drives you nuts, then you got to fix it. And so you can buy washers for the differential gears and washers for the differential pinions. You can buy them, buy all new gears if you want. Or you can get oversized washers to make up for the free play that's in there, and you can get copper washers to replace the plastic washers. I don't know, they call them phenolic or something or other, but they're plastic. They were in there originally and get torn up. And once they get torn up, then you got steel running on steel, and that um, scores up the both sides of the steel, even though it's all hardened. It's real tough on them, but they continue to work. They just make so much noise. So if you put those shims in, you can get rid of the noise. Usually, not 100%. I've talked to people on the phone who, it's a laborious task. You got to take one of the half shafts out and roll stuff around and punches and pins, dripping 90 weight on you the whole time. You got to be pretty bold. You got to be able to see what you're doing. It's all up in there. It's all black and inky and wet. And anyway, you get this stuff out and roll the new pieces in. It's a lot of work, but I've talked to any number of people who've done that in their own garage. It's not hard. It's just dirty, and they get all done, and sometimes it's still clunking. It's really frustrating. So it's a clunk that doesn't make any difference if you have it four and a half clunk, clunk, clunk. Um, I had a customer come in with a 79 midget. She said, "John, my car makes a sound like a chicken." I said, "Okay, all right. Well, let's take it out for a test drive. Let's see what's going on." So I went down the street. I went down Sherman Street, which had a lot of repairs to it. So there are lots of bumps and places you can. It's a perfect test drive track for clunks and rattles. And every time we went over a little bump, it went cluck, 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 noise like a chicken. So anyway, that was a loose shock link. I've heard that since. A loose shock link between the plate on the bottom of the leaf spring and the arm on the rear shock. So that'll cause the rear end to cluck. 77 through 80, there is a rear anti-sway bar. Real nice, real nice. But there's a bolt and a bushing, and sometimes the nut comes a little loose on the ears, and the thing starts to the big end of the rear anti-sway bar that holds the rubber bushing begins to wallow around, and in the bolt, usually just tighten it up as much as you can, 11/16 and 3/4, maybe 5/8 and 11/16, something in that range, big bolt. Anyway, that'll get rid of the clack, 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 clack that you get when you're bumping up over stuff and doing that acceleration and deceleration. Um, don't confuse your fuel pump noise with anything else. If you know what the fuel pump noise is, most of us do, because the lack of the noise indicates that the pump's not working. But if it's quiet and you just turn the key on, you can way down underneath on B's. On some of the cars, it's a little louder, but way down underneath, you hear it tick, 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 tick. Then you know the carburetors are all filled back up with gasoline. Of course, if you don't hear the ticking, then that means that the fuel pump is faulty. And if you hear it going tick, 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 about that fast, and you're moving no fuel, that's because there's either the tank is empty or there's a leak between the tank and the inlet side of the fuel pump. Means one or the other. So that's that rapid ticking that you can get back there. U joints, faulty U joints, they can clunk, absolutely, but they can also ring. Like if you took a piece of pipe and just hit it with a screwdriver, bong, Well, it's a much higher. It's more of a cling um, as the U joints take up some distance because they're worn, and that noise is transmitted into that long tube, which is the drive shaft, and it works just like a bell, ting. So yeah, another part of U joints is when you're taking off. Sometimes you can hear it just when you're taking off, and you hear a squeak, 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 and it goes faster and faster until you don't hear it anymore. So that's is only when you're taking off, and it's underneath the car, but you can hear it squeak, 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 squeak. And that is also a faulty U joint because it's got no grease in it. It's all the little bearings are getting crushed to death in there. It's a real mess. And it's just creaking on you, letting you know, screaming at you, letting you know you should change your drive shaft, your U joints. So you put the brakes on, and the car's coming down to a stop, and right at the very end, I mean, like the last 2/10 of a second at the end of the stop, clunk from the front end. So put it in reverse, and you try to listen to it there. You can't hear it there, but then you try it again in first gear, and right at the end of the stop, and you can, if it's real bad, you can almost feel it in the steering, almost, you get this real loud clunk. That's the kingpins and the A arms, where the A arms fit onto the kingpins. Um, that's that's come loose. So that's a tough one. So you got to take the whole front end apart, change the bottom of the kingpin, probably the whole kingpin at this point. Um, doesn't hurt anything. Didn't clunk for a long time, but it sounds real bad. Um, um, a whistle at high speed, driving along at 70, 75 miles an hour, 1980 MGB only. Okay. You get this, just comes and goes. It's like, what about a 1980 is different from all the rest of the cars before? None of the other cars whistle at speed. The 1980s had dimples, cutaways in the headlamp trim rings, so you didn't have to pop the trim rings off to adjust the headlights. Finally, 1980, but they whistled. So anyway, that's just 1980s with those original ones.
Hey, John, Gary here.
Yeah, Gary.
So for years, this has plagued me. Minor, but and I don't go on the highway that often, but it's plagued me. And now I know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So while we're talking about, 75 miles an hour, 74 mg midget, I have a whistle, and it seems like it's not from the side vent mirror. It's not like, and I can't, at 75 miles an hour down the turnpike, it's not exactly easy to like stick my
No,
head and figure it out. So could that
but
also be the same thing?
sure, something
I'll
close
try
to
it.
it. Take some duct tape and just wrap it around some stuff. And if
That,
you put a bunch of duct tape someplace and the sound is different or gone, you go, well, something in that area is, who knows what's
yeah,
causing it.
I never thought it might be what, about the rings and stuff. I'll take a look. Thank you
You're welcome.
once again.
So now I got cornering noises. So you can get a thumping vibration. I can't describe that in a whistle or a tick. But a thumping vibration, you can have faulty shocks, grossly out of balance wheels. Um, so you can also have on wheels that have not been run for a long, long time. You can get flat spots. Not like not like nylon tires. Or those are a long time ago. But they can still get flat spots, and you go out to run, and it's just like wop 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 wop. Just the whole car has a vibration to it. And it's just like never experienced this before. And but you keep driving, and if it smooths out, mostly smooths out, then the tires have become round again. I don't know whether they stay round or whether it's a permanent deformation. I have no idea. But anyway, that's a cause getting that kind of noise. On a row style rim, real pretty rims, but they creak. They creak. And you only notice it when you're creeping in traffic or something or other, and you hear a tick, tick every time the wheel turns. Tick, tick. It's like, what is that? It's the hubcap that goes in that holds a little MG motif. Those things get all loose. So you just pop it out and spread the little ears on it, pop it back in again. Always use grease so you can pop it out again. But after one or two times like that, you end up having to buy new ones. But those will tick. Those will tick. Um, Engine noises, lots of engine noises. We've got zizzes at high RPM, part of the title. Zizzes. Just a minute, mute all. I got everybody muted. So just at a certain RPM range, you just get a zzz, and it's not speed related, it's RPM related, then yes, then it very easily might be some of the exhaust system. Either it's not fastened correctly, it's vibrating, or sometimes the guts of the muffler itself have fallen out and just cause it to rattle at certain RPMs. There's an engine noise that's a pretty pronounced knock. When the car's idling, it sounds like a diesel. Knock, 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 knock. It's got that diesel sound to it. And you bring the RPM up to 800, 850, 900. All of a sudden it's gone. It's gone. Well, that's piston slap. That's the pistons rocking at the top of the cylinder when it's at idle. But once things get going more quickly, they no longer have that ability to rock. But that means that the engine needs to be bored. It's a real you can't get rings to cover that up. It's a lot of wear on that. Just a moment here. So you certainly have a tick from the valve train. There's always noise from the valve train. It just, unless you're really good at this, and spend a lot of time, boy, one valve can give you a tick, 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 tick that you cannot get rid of or you can't dampen. So I always tell people to just set their valves at 13 thousandths on the later model MGBs, 15 thousandths on everything else. Midget 1275s are, I think, 12, and midget 1500s are 10. But set those valves at 13. If setting them at 15 and your MGA is still too rattly for you, take it down to 13. If that quiets it up, it ain't going to hurt anything. It'll be all right. I tell the story a couple of times. I've told it a couple of times of the guy that called me. He bought an MGTC. He bought it new, and he talked to me in about 1980. So there's 30 years there, right? So he said, I hate driving my car. It makes so much noise. I said, well, from the valve train. I said, where you get the valves set at? And he goes, 19. I said, well, set them at 15. He goes, well, the valve cover says 19. I said, you called me, this is my advice, set them at 15. So he calls me back a couple of days later. He goes, I love my car. I can drive it now. After 30 years? Oh, anyway, valve noises can just drive you nuts. So if you set them all the same, 13 thousandths on the late model Bs or the earlier ones if you have to, then if you've got a valve which is particularly noisy, take it like a 10 thousandths feeler and run it in between the rocker and the valve, stick it in there, and about a 10,000ths, and just the change in no engine noise should be the same at each valve. So when you find the valve that is causing the tick, it'll shut right up and you won't hear it. And you go, okay, well then that's the valve. So then you got to decide what to do. Is it the lifter? Is it that you tighten it up a little bit more? Something's going on. So in the end, of course, it's always the bad news, and you got to end up taking the head off and change the cam and all that kind of stuff. But ticks are frustrating. Um, if you got a rattle on acceleration, and it sounds like a bunch of rocks in a tin can. It really does. And it did a little, well, I'm more thinking of a water pump. It's knock. It's like somebody with the fastest percussion instrument in the world. It's like knock, 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 knock. It rattles. It rattles. And that is spark knock. That's terrible. You don't ever want that. Stay away from that area. You never want it to rattle on acceleration. That's a spark knock. It means the engine isn't firing correctly. It'll damage the inside. Plus, it's just set up wrong. So it's that rattle on acceleration. So anyway, that is a particular one. We've got the fuel pump tick. A couple of times I've run into a rattle that comes from deep inside the engine. It's like it's rattling. It's obviously not right, but what's going on? It only happens during deceleration in the engine, just deceleration. There's just a rattle. That can be looser worn wrist pins. Seen that before. 1977 through 80 MGBs, still what I refer to as a new B. Those cars have electric cooling fans, and when those motors stick, the factory motors, oh, it squeals like a stuck pig. Oh, it's horrible. It's just like, oh, whoa, what is going? You can't turn it off, without turning the car off. Real frustrating. It's like, ending up having your horn honking when you don't want it to. It's just a horrible noise. And anyway, that's the one of the cooling fan motors. You can get new ones. Most of them are okay now.
Hey, John, Gary here.
Gary,
Yeah, question. So I have an 80 and I had that noise with my fan and I replaced it with another one. Now, before I replaced it, what would happen was when I turned, if it was warm and it was running perfectly well, but idling or whatever, when I turned my ignition on, the fan would run on for whatever 10, 20 seconds until things cooled down, and then it shut off. The replacement motor was not a new one. I bought a used one, and basically, so it's a two pin. It just plus and minus. It's very simple wiring, and the new fan, just plug and play, but it turns off exactly when my engine turns off. Can you explain that?
no, not easily. I'll have to think about that for a while. I'll talk to you. Give me a call tomorrow, and I'll think about that.
Thank you.
No reason it should run on, but if it did, it did. It's always interesting to
Oh,
go
no,
through.
I was happy that it did. I
Yeah.
meant whatever.
Okay.
Anyway,
All right.
thank you. Bye.
Okay. Where are we here? We are at um oh yeah, the can of gravel rolling. Just a can of gravel rolling. That's a bad water pump. Water pump bearings. Real particular sound. Oh my gosh, I can walk up to a car and hear it. If the bearings are failed up there, it's just unnatural, and I can't begin to. It's a growly kind of sound. It's accompanied with that gravel. So once you hear it once or twice, it's pretty easy to find out. All you do is grab the fan blade. Either the fan blades is tight or not. If it's wobbly, then something's going on. alternators hardly ever jam. They just hardly they do, but they hardly ever jam. If they do, same thing with a frozen water pump. Water pumps don't freeze anyway, but if it did, then the fan belt is still being turned by the engine and is just screaming for its life. So yeah, that's a terrible kind of scream that would come out of the out of your car. There's a whistle that you might have on deceleration, only on deceleration. Maybe a little bit at idle, maybe, but certainly on deceleration. And you're just coming down to a stop, and you hear this high-pitched whistle. It's like it's from under the bonnet. It's like, what is going on? It's a leak, the air leak. And when you're between the carburetors and the intake manifold, when you're slowing down, that engine wants a lot of air and it can't get any from anywhere. So if there's a pinhole leak, the air under extreme vacuum in the engine, it can draw enough air in to whistle, to make a noise. There's another exhaust sound that you get when you're driving along and you take your foot off the gas and pa 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 pa. You get those bangs out of the back of the out of the exhaust. Um, um, that is from an air pump still being on the car, pushing a lot of air. It's combustion that's occurring in the tailpipe during deceleration. Um, when you on all the cars up through 68 through 67, and all the ones that have been converted and changed since 68. When you're driving along and you suddenly let your foot off on the throttle, there's still air fuel that's getting into the engine, but there's so little that it can't combust. It doesn't combust. It's running down the tailpipe, just hot air fuel mixture, and anything will light it up, and that's what happens during deceleration, most often caused by additional air getting into the system. So there's a leak someplace in the exhaust system. That's almost always the case. Getting a pop pop pop. Plus, it's running a little too rich, probably. But the that papa, and that's very different from a backfire. People call me all the time and say, "Oh, my car's backfiring." I say, "All right, does it sound like like a or does it sound like an M80, that's gone off in your exhaust?" And they can differentiate those two noises. So sometimes if it's a bang out the back of the tailpipe, it's a bad condenser. That's the most common reason the ignition gets all screwed up. So anyway, it's a lot of noises from that exhaust, a lot of popping. So you can find a leak someplace. If you take a bunch of rags and get them really cold, 5-gallon pail of water, and you get your buddy to stick it over the tailpipe while the car is running, so it doesn't burn his hand off because it's really hot. And you run along the underside of the exhaust, listening for a where the exhaust is trying to get out of the system, and that's your air leak. So that's the poor man's diagnostics on that. There's also exhaust noises. Also are jingles. Just and it's almost always a loose clamp someplace on the exhaust that it's all rusted away. You can't get the bolt and nut free. You got to cut it off. Anyway, those are common, and they give that jingly sound. So sometimes you can get a tinkly rattle, just a tinkly out on the door, and it's the rear view mirror. It's the glass in the rear view mirror that is loose, and you touch the glass, tink 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 tink, and it's rattling around it inside there. So on almost all the modern mirrors, there's that insert and pop that out of the way, get the mirror out, stuff something back in there, part of an old rag, put that back in there, put the mirror in, put it all back together. That'll hold the glass tight, you know, against the housing. Get rid of that tinkle. Um, During our complete lubrication, we used to walk around the car and grab stuff. That was just one of the things. You grab the bumpers, you shake the bumpers, you shake the overriders, and you shake the license plate. You just shake all that stuff by hand. Just you're standing next to it and you shake it all. Is something loose? Well, you can have an overrider that's loose that just jingle from time to time, and it's just it's like a headache. It's like what is going on? And you can find it by just going around and feeling the stuff on the outside of the cars.
John,
Um,
on my 80, my mirror does rattle, and I've looked at it, and I don't know how to remove the glass.
I'll talk about that tomorrow too, Gary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, um, that is the extent of the little noises and rattles that I have. But boy, you can sure tell a lot. You go out on a quiet road where you can just hear the car by itself, and just let it coast. Just let it coast and listen, and then jump on the brakes and get off the brakes and zigzag the car back and forth, and just listen. Is anything loose? Anything rattling around? Just this past week, I bought my son's 1996 MGF. Changed all a bunch of the oils, and we drove around town. Jeannie and I drove around town for 30 miles and passed that test. So the next day we drove down to Detroit to a family party. But there's an acorn. I know it's an acorn because I took a lot of them out of the car. That's up inside the boot lid, or the boot lid, and every now and then it'll start to rattle. It's like, God, come on, how do you get that out of there? But I know what it is. Anyway, now I'm interested to see what noises somebody else may have had, and we're able to explain to everybody else maybe how to identify it.
Hey,
So,
John, I got my
chat,
hand up.
yeah, Judd.
Yeah. But on my TD, which probably is running rich, but it always has. If I've driven it and gotten it really good and hot, driven it all day and stop and shut it off, frequently I will get that M80 got the tailpipe. It's not quite as hot as an M80, maybe like more like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
kaboom,
yeah. A
but it's
definite,
definitely combustion going on in the tailpipe. Is there a solution or is it? I
yeah.
mean, it's
Now here, you got standard ignition or electronic?
got electronic now, but I believe it did it when I had standard, but I couldn't swear to that.
Because the electronic ones will end up giving a when you shut it off, the coil collapses. That's when you get the spark. So I don't know if it's shutting off a little late. That doesn't make any sense at all. But someone talked to me about this about a year ago, and we came to a conclusion. And I can't, since I'm over 70, I can't remember what it was, but he had the same problem, and he worked through it, and we came up with a solution. And I can't think of what it was, but now I'm challenged, and maybe I'll be able to think of it by
Wait
tomorrow.
till you're over 80, you'll forget it all.
Hey, yeah, yep, yep. Unless someone else has a comment about that. Justin, you got a comment about that, or
Oh, I was just
you
raising
get?
my hand for being next for whenever.
Yeah, okay, all
You
right.
ready now?
So anyway, Judd, I'll think about that because I I just I don't know. Let's
Okay,
let's
thanks. That'd be great.
yeah,
It seems to be only after I've driven the car hard,
yeah,
which I generally do,
a lot of
and
heat.
when the car's really been good and warmed up.
Yeah, okay. All righty. I'll think on it. Okay. All right. Now, Justin.
Good evening. Good to see you again, as always. So I had a couple of things. First is I wanted to thank you very much about mentioning the the all the sounds, of course, but there's been a clink that's been random or intermittent, and it was driving me crazy. And I think you've given me something to consider with the universal joint or the drive shaft. And it was like something metal striking something else metal. Almost, it was a clink, kind of like a bell, but
A
mostly a
clink,
clink.
a clink is a drive shaft noise for sure. And this happens when you take up the slop, right? When you go to do go into
Leave
first
from
or
a stop.
go into reverse.
Well, leaving from a stop, mostly forward, is when
Okay.
I would notice it. But then again, I'm mostly driving forward anyway.
Okay.
But
Got it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but it was so random. So I the question I have for you is, and you can answer it after I mention the other two. That way, I won't be talking anymore. But the question I have is where would I look? What would I do, or do I just start replacing things? So
On
that's
the
the answer I wanted to get.
you're talking about the drive shaft and the clink that you're getting out of there, right?
Right.
Okay, so you got two options. One is there's 100 million truck shops everywhere that repair drive shafts every single day. They'll take it, put new U joints into it, balance it for you, give it back to you a couple of $100. Or you can change the U joints yourself. So,
Okay. So new joints and balance.
well, that's only something that a truck shop would do for you. But
Sure.
yeah, you get a balance for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. All right, I'll just head that direction. So the other noises, one of my group members here in Virginia mentioned that their car, the side view mirror, the glass itself would vibrate like crazy,
Yeah.
and mine was doing that, and we don't know how to solve it necessarily, other than just replacing the whole mirror.
So is the glass vibrating in the housing or is the housing vibrating on the stalk that comes out?
It's the glass vibrating within the housing.
Okay, isn't there a piece of plastic that goes around the outside of that mirror?
It seems to be a piece of plastic, yes. And
Yeah.
of course, we know that plastic shrinks and becomes
Yeah.
brittle and all that.
So get up underneath that with a little screwdriver, one of those little tiny screwdrivers. Just go up
Hmm.
underneath and pull part of it out, expose it, push the mirror back in and pull that plastic out, and then just with your thumb and forefinger, just pull that plastic out from between the mirror and the housing. Then the mirror is free to fall out and will. So so
Right.
try to hold on to that, and then just put something thicker behind there. I used to just take a part of a shop rag and ball it up, and stuff it in there, and that would hold glass tight against
Oh,
against the
okay.
housing.
Pressure from the back side of it. I
Yeah.
got you. Okay. So then the last one, I haven't heard of anybody else having this, but I'm sure they have. This one took me probably the longest, and it was a vibration when I was at a stop and sitting there idling, and I couldn't for the life of me figure it out. But you can't get out of the car and run around the car when you're in traffic at a red light. So I discovered what it was, and it's the driver's side door handle button. So if I'm driving along and I start hearing it, I just reach out and push the button like downward toward the ground, and it stops vibrating. It's just hilarious to me.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And some of them can just, well, you get done driving, you get out of the car, you forget the door handle's shaking, until one day you happen to have some tools there. You drives you so crazy that you then go ahead and fix it. Those are hard to adjust, those door pushes. Oh my gosh, you got to have 5/16 and a 3/8 wrench like that long to get down through there.
And what are
Oh my
we
God.
what are we adjusting for that?
What's that?
What are we adjusting? Clearly, there's a tick
Here,
when we.
I've got to hit my mute all button, and now I'll invite you to
That's
come
okay.
back. Yeah.
Yep, I'm back. So yeah, what are we adjusting in that? I couldn't even see anything or think of anything.
Well, it's a bolt and a stop nut and a washer, maybe an internal star washer, 1032 that thread into the inside of the door handle from the inside of the car. You can get to these by rolling the window down, looking down there in the light, seeing, oh, there's the nut, and then figuring out how with two hands to to loosen or tighten this thing, depending on where you want to position that handle, or if you're trying to get the whole handle tight, that's even more difficult. You might even have to gut the door. That's reaching. There's a couple little nuts in there. They're 2BA. Call them 5/16. 5/16, so wrench will fit them just fine. But they're really difficult to access.
Yeah, the handle seems fine. It's just the button. Okay, so you're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
that that's accessible
yeah.
without
It's a yeah.
removing anything? No, the panel can stay in place and so on?
No, I think I don't think you have to take any. I think if you got some tools that are long enough, but they got to be long enough. I mean, you can't buy a 3/8 wrench that's 14 inches long. So
Okay.
you gotta solder or weld some wire onto one or something or other. It's yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Okay. Unless you take the whole door apart, of course, and then all access, pull the glass out, all that stuff gets easier, but that's a real task. Okay, Tony.
Hi, John. I have a question to ask about the kingpins. I've never replaced the kingpins on my 55. So, is there a way to static check to make sure that they're still in good condition? Like, for example, do I grab the tire and shake it around or what?
Well, yes, but the car has to be laden. In other words, you can't jack it up and then grab a hold of the wheel. I mean, you can do that, of course. That'll show up some other stuff that might not quite be right. But um, uh, no, you want to do that with just lost my train of thought. So talk to me again.
Uh, just the kingpins. How do I check to
So
make sure?
so yeah, if it's up in the air and you're shaking it, there's some stuff that might be loose, but if you're on the ground and you have the biggest friend you've got, grab the top of the tire and violently move it back and forth while you're underneath with your head, in a light, looking to see if you see any free movement,
Okay.
So you might have some, you might not have some. You probably don't have any. Those are
Okay.
those they get bent. Kingpins are bent all the time, um, but the threads are almost okay.
Okay.
After this,
So the fact that the car handles well and everything's steering is good, I just shouldn't worry about them then.
well, you always top of your list is always brakes. So, yep.
Okay.
Okay. David Basili.
Yeah, I've got a 1980 MGB, 118,000 miles on it. And when I take off, it has a little bit of a squeal to it when I let the clutch out. Just a minor squeal, it goes away quickly, but it squeaks or squeals a little bit.
Is that when you're operating the clutch pedal? Does the clutch pedal depressing that make it happen and not?
No sound at all. It's when I accelerate and I let the clutch out and it squeals a little bit when it engages the clutch and
I don't know. If I was in the car, I'd probably be able to tell you, but I can't get there I can't make sense out of that. I mean, I can't understand what would be going on. Um, um, Roller clutch bearing, any chance? You got an old graphite original one.
it's all original. It's never
Okay,
been
okay,
attended to.
okay.
You think the clutch plate is kind of wearing out and
The clutch, um, when the clutch wears out, it either sticks, so you cannot disengage the clutch. That's when it completely collapses and folds over on itself and gets jammed. Rare. Or the more common one is when it's burned down to nothing, and there's the sandwiching effect between the pressure plate and the flywheel isn't strong enough because the disc is way too thin. The disc has been worn away. So since I wouldn't expect anything from the clutch disc causing that squeal. Worse when it's cold or hot.
it appears to be more when the car is first operated, like when it's cold.
Okay.
Subsides or you don't hear it. Like
So is the noise there when the clutch is just disengaged?
No, it's
Okay,
not. It's only when I'm
and it's not there when
letting
you're
the
running it.
clutch out. Moving.
It's just when you're letting up on it.
Yes,
That's the throwout bearing or thrust plate or something. How many miles are on the car since the last clutch?
118,000.
Since the last clutch?
It's never had a new clutch.
Yeah,
It's
well, the rule of thumb, this is back in the day when they were primary vehicles, was that you get 50,000 miles out of a clutch. Okay? I mean that's with really nice use and everything. Now, of course, you can get on the expressway and drive from here to California back and forth because you're never using the clutch. It'll last a million miles. Um, Bob and Gloria haven't changed theirs yet, and uh, anyway, that it sounds like it's ready for a clutch.
Hey,
oh,
John, I got a comment on that clutch noise.
Yeah,
If it sounds like a really loud squealing, shattering noise just as you're trying to engage the clutch, that would be worn splines between the clutch disc and the transmission shaft.
meaning that I probably need to replace the clutch, huh?
yeah, these are yeah. Yep. So,
I
and
don't want to do that, John.
that is what year and model is this?
118,000.
Yeah, MGB.
Yeah, MGB.
What year?
1980.
Oh yeah. Okay. Never been apart before. Take a lot of pictures. So probably worked on, but not probably the clutch hadn't been
Yeah.
pulled. So that's nice.
That noise that noise can also be aggravated by a loose spigot bearing at the same time.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
So
But that's still part of the clutch. Yeah.
what's the spigot bearing?
The pilot shaft. It's a sintered bronze bearing that goes inside the crankshaft, and the first motion shaft from the gearbox sits inside of it, carrying the clutch disc. This bushing in here at the end of the crank that allows the first motion shaft to run smoothly inside, but it wears out, or as Bernie says, they actually get loose on the outside. God knows why, because they've been beaten so much. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, they'll slip out of place and make some noise. If they're too tight, they can make some noise. But all these mean that take a lot of pictures and have a real good time doing the clutch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, John.
Hey, Fred.
I have a couple strange noises that I've experienced over the years.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
One time I was driving the MGA and heard a high-pitched squeal coming from under the bonnet. And I got home. I saw a little trail of oil up the driveway. Turned the car off. Of course, noise went away. The oil pressure gauge line had sprung a tiny leak, and that oil going out that hole was making this high-pitched squeal. I'd never seen that before.
Spin-on filters do the same thing. Sometimes you spin the filter off and it leaves the ring, and you
Yeah.
spin a new filter on because you're not being careful. And it lasts for, a little while, and all of a sudden it sings to you. It does. It's a singy kind of whistle. What is that? That oil under such velocity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it?
So there's another one. A friend of mine has the MGA. Engine was rebuilt, had about maybe 3,000 miles on it, and he was complaining that between 1,800 and 2,200 RPM, driving along, it would have this little tinkly sound like a loose washer on the transmission, or some fitting or something. Just a little jingly sound. Went through everything, turned out to be a faulty rod bearing. Of all things, it was just this little jingly sound between 1,800 and 2,200 RPM, and it was a bad rod bearing. the poor rebuild on the engine.
Jingly sound. That's fascinating. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Now, my last one was a 67 or 66 MGB with the 3-synchro transmission, and with the clutch engaged, sounded like a rod knock. Clutch disengaged, quiet. Right? It turned out to be a missing tooth on the first motion shaft gear. Sounded like a rod knock.
Yeah, it's real rare to lose one of those helical teeth. But
It
yeah,
happens.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, just something's
All right,
terribly
those are
wrong.
my inputs.
Gosh. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That's those are that whistling from the leaking. Oh, you can get, speaking of other noises, you can get something that sounds like a hammer. Bang, 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 bang on an anvil. Bang, 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 bang. That it at engine speed, and it's a little tiny tear in the exhaust manifold between the head and the exhaust manifold, and the exhaust is shooting out of there, and it sounds just like someone's hammering on an anvil. It's like, what? It's metallic. Oh my gosh! And all this is a bad gasket. Not that that's simple to fix, but yeah.
I do have one more. When I
Yes.
first put my MGA together 30 years ago, I was driving to work. I think I was coming back. Heard this rattling noise in the rear of the car. This was a steel wheel car with hubcaps. Guess what it was?
Hubcaps.
Loose lug nut. The lug nut had
Oh,
come off,
oh,
was rattling
oh.
around in the hubcap.
Oh, but only at real slow speeds, because once you got going, noise would go away. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That one was my fault.
Yep. Yeah. Bob and Gloria. Oh, I know you got your hand up. I know what you're going to talk. Thanks, Fred. That's real kind. Jeez.
Maybe you do. We had a couple interesting noises.
Hey,
One was like a jingling sound, and just like jingling, And I open a trunk, looking around,
that's our
and
shirt.
I've got oh
Here?
yeah,
Huh?
Hey, sorry, Bob. Back up. Keep going. I had someone's background noise on here. I had to hit mute all.
So anyway, so I look. I've got two magnetic strips with sockets on them, and sockets connect with a twist. The deep sockets were rattling. Put a rubber band around every other socket, noise is gone. And then we had another rattle, and I lost a 1/2 inch socket. And I could not find it anyway. It went all through the trunk, but I had this rattle, and we had to take the overrider off, or maybe we took the bumper off for some reason. That 1/2 inch socket was living in the overrider, and we didn't. I felt so stupid because it would have been an obvious place to look.
Thank
But
you for
now
sharing tonight.
yeah, and now I've got every once in a while, and my clutch depressed. I'll hear
Whining.
I hear the throw up bearing noise, and not every time though, just once in a while, especially if I'm letting it out slow, like in a parking lot, I can hear it. So I just I shift a lot without the clutch, so make it last. But I hate that job.
How many miles on that clutch?
I don't know, about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Whenever,
So,
yeah, John,
about
whenever you,
50, 60,000.
yes, yeah, our clutch, last time I took the clutch out at 75,000 on the clutch, it was not even half worn, because we do a lot of highway driving.
Yeah.
So I think the last time we did it was when you did the overdrive for us. the last time we had the transmission out? That was like 3 years ago, maybe. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, at
When
least,
you're
Yes,
tick,
it's a
tick, tick, at least that. Yeah.
so I don't know how long that's going to last, but we're going to go on vacation in September, as long as Gloria's hip heals up.
Great.
She got a new hip for about 5 days ago, so and it's coming along nicely. But
You
there's
waited, she
go ahead.
waited all these years to be hip.
Yeah, she's gonna be hip. Yeah, and you
Uh-huh.
know what? I don't like the thought of getting a new hip because I'm kind of attached to my old one. So
Yeah, okay. I bet there's lots of jokes like these
oh boy, you wouldn't believe.
in the
We
office.
we had a friend that was rather rotund and she got a new hip, and I bit my lip. I didn't want to say it, but I wanted to. It's you think they give you a smaller hip, but
That would have been bad.
I'm not an idiot. I didn't say it. I just thought it.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Off we go. Hey, thank you very much. So, yep. Steve, you can
Yeah.
come on.
Greetings. Can you hear me
Hey.
okay?
Yes.
So I've got a 68 MGB, and for the longest time, I had this really annoying buzz that came, it seemed like it was coming from behind the dashboard, maybe the air vent or something. Well, it turned out it was the spoke that connects the windshield, the vertical spoke that used to have a mirror on it in the older cars. Tightened it up and the buzz went away. I couldn't believe it.
It's a testimony to just feeling and see, just running your hand all around the car and finding stuff that's loose. So if it's loose,
Right.
it'll make noise. So,
and I realize that now, but
oh boy,
that was, a good foot above where the noise seemed to be coming from because something was resonating back there when this spoke would vibrate.
there's a lot of noises that are transmitted from the rear axle up into the gearbox too. Talking about where noises present.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's like, you got a screech or something or other, and you go, well, I can tell exactly where that is, but some of those rear end noises are really hard to chase.
Yeah.
So,
And I know I should have kept that tight anyway, but nevertheless, that solved my problem. I was really happy.
very nice, very nice.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
I didn't mention, but if your spokes are bad in your wire wheel and you're pushing the car like at a real low, you get this creaky noise. Oh my gosh, what is that? So, hey, we got Michael.
Hi, John. I appreciate your
Yes,
taking
sir.
the time to answer questions. I've got a 67 MGB with a high pitched rattle. I describe it more like BBs in a tin can rolling down a hill. I can't really localize it. It's very intermittent.
Oh boy.
Lasts from anywhere from 1 to 4 seconds. And I'm wondering if that's likely to be water pump bearing.
I have to, I've got to hit mute all here. We're just got to ask you to start over again. We had too much background noise there. So just come on back on and keep telling us what you were telling us.
Okay, so I high pitched rattle, very intermittent. Doesn't make any difference what gear I'm in or if I'm in neutral. It lasts anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 seconds. Sounds like a tin can of ball bearings, or actually BBs rolling down a hill. Is it likely to be a water pump bearing given the fact that it's so intermittent?
Oh, could be. I mean, you feel everything you can get your hands on, but to take the blades on the fan and wiggle them, there shouldn't be any movement. Well, depends how hard you push, but it should feel really firm. So if there's a problem there, that's really easily diagnosed. But the sound like BBs in a can. It's
Yeah.
like, why? What I'm thinking is that, and this is when the car's moving only.
Only when it's moving.
Okay, so BBs in a can are a high pitched kind of tinkle noise. Maybe there's something dragging on the drive shaft. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, could be.
I'll check the heat shield as well.
Oh yeah. So the difference in noises are, is it RPM related? Is it speed related? Is it
Doesn't seem to be
deceleration,
RPM related. Like when
acceleration?
it's happening, if I accelerate, it doesn't change until it wants to. The same if I'm in neutral, coasting to a stop or something, it'll occur. And then go away. Never lasts more than a few seconds.
Yeah.
Intermittent
So
every 5
if
minutes.
it's tinkly, I'd go for it around the drive, get it up in the air and just look underneath there. If something's dragging, you'll see a line,
Yeah.
so.
All right. Good deal. Thanks.
Okay, yeah. Okay. We have Mike. All right. So we are at the end of our comments of people who wanted to talk about, the subject tonight. This is and tinks, rattles. If you have any more, come on in now. Otherwise, I'm going over to the chat section. And Al.
One more, John.
Yeah.
Pentagon is sending more aircraft to the Middle
Oh,
East.
no, I'm just a minute. I gotta hit mute all again. And just because I got too much background noise. Al Gapesky, you can come on. You can unmute yourself.
How's this? You hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
You may have covered this in your thunk in the trunk presentation, although I've never heard you address it before. I had a mysterious thunk in the trunk, emptied the trunk, no good. Ended up being worn rear leaf spring bushings. The flange on the bushing had worn away, and
Oh my
the leaf
gosh.
spring was just slapping back and forth between the shackles every time I turned the corner.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's a lot of wear. Holy moly. But fascinating. Very nice. Thanks for bringing that up. Those thunks way in the back. A lot of thunks in the back. Usually you can diagnose them by pressing the car real hard, accelerating real hard, decelerating really hard. Fast you can. I'll often take the car if I'm listening for rear axle noises. I'll put the car in about 30 miles an hour and then just start hitting the throttle just like that. I mean, about that fast. And the car's just one great big jerk, 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 jerk. The car's moving. It's fun to do that with the customer in the car. They go, well, I don't drive my car like this. I say, well, I wouldn't drive your car like this either, but this is a test drive. We're listening for problems. So anyway, you really make it shake, tunk, tunk, back and forth. And the whole drivetrain winds up and unwinds as you're violently accelerating and decelerating. Sometimes that'll help diagnose what's going on too. So.
Hi, John. This is Barney.
Barney, yes.
Yeah, I got a few more noises for you.
Okay.
You mentioned clunk in the front suspension. One of my first encounters with the noise, the first week I had my first MGA, you pull up to a stoplight, and just as you stop, it goes clunk. You take your foot off the brake, and it goes clunk. You creep forward, hit the brake, it goes clunk. Standing still, take your foot off the brake, it goes clunk again. Turned out to be loose bolts in the lower A-arm brackets. The A-arms are about to fall apart.
Okay. Yeah, but that's how you found it, by just moving it back and forth and listening until you could figure out where at least to start looking.
I knew it wasn't right. I didn't want my car to fall apart, so I whipped it into the first service station, got on a hoist, and the guy put the bolts back in the front suspension. I got a couple more for you too. We had a jingling noise. It sounded like jingle bells. Just like little light jingling sound, like you had jingle bells on your knuckles and shaking them. You drive along and it's jingling, and then you pull up to a stop sign and the noise goes away. And then you drive off, and sometimes the jingling noise comes back, and sometimes it doesn't. And you drive along, it'll be quiet, and you hit a bump, and the jingling noise comes back again. Had to take it home, crawl into the car, and look around. It turned out to be MGA with the second generation transmission with the internal rear seal on the gearbox and the prop shaft with a dust cup on it, sliding spline coupling. Second generation one, the dust cup is press fit onto the front yoke, and the dust cup came loose. And it would jingle when you're driving, and sometimes when you stop, jingle would go away, and it would sort of recenter itself, and it wouldn't jingle again until you hit a bump. So the cure for that is just put a couple of tack welds on, hold it on there. It's actually a fairly common problem. I've run into that more than once.
Yeah, that's a real specific one. Thanks. Thanks. What's your other one?
Oh, well, sometimes you get buzzing noises under the dashboard. You're crawling under the dash and poking at things and trying to put your fingers on the dash braces. There's this fairly loud buzzing noise, and it's sensitive to engine speeds, so you know it's a resonance frequency. Happens at certain engine speeds. Speed the engine up, noise goes away. Slow the engine down, noise goes away. You pick just the right engine speed, and it just vibrates like crazy. Turns out to be the MGA bonnet not quite sitting on the rubber buffers. The rear hinge was a little bit loose, so the hood is vibrating. If you just open the hood a few inches and then press down real hard right over the hinge, it bends the hinge down just a hair. And when you close the hoods back on the rubber bumpers, the noise is gone. And that's very common. It happens more than once.
They put the insulation on the underside of the MGB so it wouldn't drum like that. One of the reasons. Absolutely. Thanks.
Well, it turns out that on the MGAs and maybe the early MGBs, the bonnet hinges are very thin, flimsy, both the bonnet and the boot lid, and you can bend those by hand rather than having to get your screwdriver out to adjust the hinges. Just lift the bonnet up and give it a good push. Close the bonnet and realign the hinges that way.
Yeah, you better have the grill out though. The thing, bonnet will stick shut on you, boy. Last thing you fit in an MGA is the grill. You got a fast disconnect for MGA grills though, Barney, don't you? On the site.
Well, I do have them on my website, but not on my car. I'm careful with what I'm doing, and I've never had a bonnet stick shut like that for myself.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. Okay. Hey, thank you everyone for listening to all the clunks and rattles. I want to go over into the chat section, uh, which is hard for me to make work because of the way things are. Just a moment. Let me get my screen sorted out here. And then no. Oh, I can read this. All right, thank you. David Basili. Is there a recommendation for a voltage meter, an ammeter, to be placed in the radio slot on an MGB? Well, there's certainly Smith's voltmeters that I'm sure you can find match. I'd never fit an ammeter. They're just dangerous. They're unnecessary, and they're dangerous when you're doing it. It's a power line in and out of the ammeter, so that it's a terrible dead short if something goes wrong. It just isn't worth it. But other than no, something that I don't even know. West Valley Instruments. There's the guy in New York that sells instruments, repairs instruments, British speedometer, something like that. New York picked up where Neisinger left off. Might have something like that. I don't know where else to look, except on the front pages of Moss Motors. Uh, Peter Hopswell, am I the closest from Holland, Michigan? No, sorry, Peter. John Clark's here in town, of course, and so is Marty. But yeah, thanks. John will be in. Oh, so let's see. Are there any Morse miners that might show up to MG International in Sandusky, Ohio? Um, sure. You'll be dwarfed by the number of MGs there, but if that's what you want to drive, come on, it's a show for everybody. There's certainly a non MG British section there, sure, absolutely. Here, let me come down here, and we are looking. Just a moment here. Here we go. Steve Lepovsky. I hope I'm catching this at the right place. There's a lot of other stuff in there. Just rebuilt my tandem brake master cylinder on my 73 BGT. That little connecting link between the two pistons assemblies was a bit twisted up. Yeah, I bet it was. Apparently, it's a bit deformed. When I got everything back together, I find I don't have rear brakes. I'm guessing that the distance is incorrect between the two piston assemblies. Just ordered a new Lucas master cylinder. Yeah. I'm guessing that the only fix for the old cylinder is to get a new cylinder. But yes, the links are not available. But it might be simply that you got to bleed the rears first. Might be as simple as that. It might be as simple as the brake light switch is screwed in just a little too much, and you haven't got enough pedal free play. Or it could be there's something wrong inside the cylinder. So we used to rebuild those SSB 775. That was the part number. The great set. It had all the bits and pieces. We had a jig to push them together, drive that little tiny pin out, take it apart. You know, something's wrong. We had used ones, throw those in, put them in, put all the seals in, put it back together because it was less expensive than buying a new part. But that's no longer the case. And everything that's out on the road seems to be pretty beat up. There are those who go for originality, like, you know, I don't want to change the master cylinder in my MGA to a new one. Absolutely not. You know, that's mine. So I had it rebuilt at great expense, you know, re-sleeved and stuff like that. So anyway, the any tricks for removing and sewing the master to make it less of a chore? No, you don't put the banjo bolt in the rear. Don't put the banjo bolt on that rear brass fitting. Put that in later. You know, that means you're going to drop the one-way valve and everything. So you got to be clean and neat about it. But anyway, then you can roll the whole cylinder over and get it up and out. Let's see, here we go. Oh, here we go. Somebody complaining that they've run out of gas and it's somebody else's fault. It's always your own fault that you run out of gas.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
The empty here in the background. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my dad's 1960 MGA that he bought in 1961. And I just transferred the title to me this past week. So I've had a couple Bs in the past, and I knew the the fuel pump sound. When you run out of gas, the fuel pump will just go luck, 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 luck. And I hadn't thought of it in 20 years. And all of a sudden, and you were talking about that sound. And I'm like, it popped in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, I ran out of gas. But wonderful to be with you. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in 20 years, probably, when I had my first Bs. So,
okay.
Yeah, nice to see you.
It's real nice. Is that a local MGA?
It is. It's in Holland, Michigan now. My dad had it down in Champaign, Illinois.
All right. That's at a distance. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I pulled it up here. It's in working order and pretty much original. Nice. So wonderful. And having adventures with my dad with helping me get my MGBs going. And so it carries on, as you well know, with these kind of cars. You know, it's a great tribute to my dad, and glad to be here with you guys. Yeah.
Thanks. So go online and find the complete lubrication.
Yeah. Okay.
Depending on when the last time you had your hands deep into it, you know exactly what's going on. Anytime a car transfers owner, you do a complete lube, you just make sure the front chocks are tight. I mean, the list goes on. There's 80 items on it or something. Just go.
Well, it had been sitting for quite a while, and it had the flat spot and acceleration, and that worked its way out. So I didn't have to call you guys for that. But it's first gear is tough. Second gear is terrible. So I there's some projects on that car, but
Great. All right.
yeah. But thank you very much for
Okay.
the evening and time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. John Lynn, clutch problem. My son's working on a 76 midget. We're having trouble getting the clutch pedal to stiffen up. It feels like it's completely disconnected. We're told by a trusted friend a new clutch was installed with the rebuilt engine before we transferred the project to us. We've installed a new master cylinder and slave and used pressure bleeders that work fine with my 76. It looks like all the air bubbles have been expelled through the clear plastic tube from the master to the slave and from the slave bleed into a container. Okay, that's as clean as you can get it. We can't get it to go into first and second at idle without pushing the pedal. Help. Okay, so what about the pin on the right-hand side of the 1500 clutch? The slave is over on this. Oh, it's so hard to explain this stuff with fingers. Anyway,
Right.
the slave is
Slave's like a big fat cigar that goes into a socket. And inside that socket is where that pin is attached to the
Yeah.
throwout bearing.
Yeah, thanks.
And I took it out. I've replaced the slave twice.
Okay.
And I've never had a problem like this on mine. I've got
All
the
right,
same car.
So the pin's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can pull it back, but I can't push it at all forward. And I'm wondering, is it possible that something's rusted shut
No,
in
I'm
there?
talking about a vertical bolt.
Oh, the vertical bolt that holds that
That
slave.
holds the whole arm.
Right.
That holds the right-hand side of the arm. There's a 5-inch long bolt that drops down through the top. Well, there isn't. Originally it's a pin held in place with these little tension pins, and once in a while that pin falls out, and it's not complicated. You just have to get it lined up and put a 5/16 by 5-inch long bolt down through the right-hand side. And you don't even have to put a nut on the bottom, and it's never going to go anywhere. It'll work just fine. But that's only one possibility. You always do the simplest, easiest, cheapest things first. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. John.
Is it inside the housing, that 5-inch bolt?
No, it's a drops down from the top.
Okay.
Drops down from the top. If you feel there, you look underneath, and you'll see it's
Well, I've got the bolt that goes into that little socket thing that
No,
keeps it from
I'm
moving. It's
I'm
a
talking
different
about
thing.
you're over on the slave side. I'm over on
Right.
I'm over on the right side. I'm on the
Okay,
I'm
right side.
on the pivot side. And then the other
Okay.
thing that we did with midgets, when all else failed, you've removed as much carpeting as you possibly can, because it seems sometimes like if you just get that pedal to go another half an inch, it'd be home free, So if you can't
It's
get
got no resistance at all. I mean, it moves. I put a new spring on it so it comes back. But as I push it forward, it's like
just
it's
got
not even
no-
connected to anything.
So
And I know I've got the thing up at the master. It's connected. I could see it
so
moving.
let's go for that bolt over on the right-hand side.
On the right-hand side.
Yeah, vertical.
Can I see that in the Moss catalog for
No,
parts? Is
probably-
that
no, I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I call you tomorrow?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look for it tonight and see if I can find
Okay,
it.
the whole arm pivots on the right-hand side, and the whole thing
Okay.
moves forward. And if there's no pin here, this thing's just flopping around. So it doesn't matter how many times you hit the clutch. So it just anyway, that's
Wow.
the cheap,
Okay.
easy first thing to look at. It might not be that, but if it is,
I'll take a look.
So yeah, okay.
Well, thank you very much, because it's
Hey,
perplexed
hey.
the heck out of it.
Yeah. Good luck.
You might have a stuck piston in the master cylinder which does not return, in which case you get zero pedal pressure and your clutch does not work.
Absolutely.
So in my new master cylinder that I put in, I might have a problem internal to
Sure.
that master.
Yep.
Okay.
So
It
sometimes
helps
the seals swell or something or other, and I don't know, you'd think to be made to some kind of standard, but the
Okay.
seals will swell, and then it's the master. So once you get the whole thing working, it's fine because the pressure from the pressure plate will push the piston back into place. But when you're bleeding, if the piston is gets stuck back, it ain't gonna work.
Okay. I'll take a look at that too.
When you're
The
installing a
second
new
new master
master
cylinder. Beg your
when
pardon?
you're installing a new when you install a new master cylinder, it helps if you can bench bleed it first, get the air out of it before you put it in the car. Otherwise, it can be a real bear to get it working the first time. Like John says, once you got the air out, it begins to work. It'll never fail again.
Yeah, I was doing the pressure bleed in order to overcome the problem of
Yeah,
not being
yeah.
able to get all the bubbles out.
You shouldn't be able to pressure bleed it if the piston is stuck back.
Okay.
But hey,
But I could take a look.
Yeah.
Something else. Thank you.
hey, you're welcome. Tony Wisely is the car brand Morris Minor a British car brand. I don't know Morris Minor. I don't even know. Originally, of course, it's part of BMC. But what about today? I don't know. But all of it's um, um, yeah, Alec Issigonis. Yes, you misspelled it here, but it's Alec Issigonis. Yeah, he made the front suspension that we use on the TD and stuff. Let's see, Tony. Okay, looking for a car. Here we've got some talk about Morris Minors. I gravity bled my clutch and it was really easy. Sometimes it is. I'm a two-person bleeder myself. I had a buzzing sound coming from behind my dashboard. 68B seemed like something in the air cleaner. Turns out it was the spoke. Oh, right, we already talked about this. That's very nice. Yep. Um, um, Peter McCurdy, 73 MGB. Turning left is a scrap, scrap, scrap noise. I just replaced the inner and outer tie rod ends. It makes me think the brake dust shield is scraping, but only on turning left. Yeah, sure, that's a possibility. Absolutely. Yeah, it's probably not a bad diagnosis on that either, Peter. That sounds pretty good. Could be. Those stuff shouldn't. Well, stuff flexes when you're putting those real sharp turns on them, and you can also get a from the rear brakes. Didn't even mention that. If the handbrake cable is touching the inside of the wheel, and sometimes you go in and do some kind of work, and you get a new noise, and it's just like, what's going on? Or you can always look on the inside of the wheel and make sure there's not a line rubbed from the new tie rod end. You look, do a real good visual. I got one for you. Zip tied a kid's harmonica to a buddy's axle tube. This sounds like urban legend here, George. Drove him nuts trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. Twice he asked me to look underneath to check. Several weeks later, he took it to a local shop. Everyone got a good laugh except him.
Not, John, it's not an urban legend. I did that to a fella.
Good
When
for
you get
you.
a bunch of racers together, you never know what's going to
Oh
happen.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's wonderful. Yeah. Oh my.
Find somebody you don't like and do that to them.
Yeah. Today you go. Everybody goes to jail today for fun stuff like that. Darren says thanks to me for all my nice noises. Okay. Just to be clear, the Portland FBM. Maybe I wasn't listening, but I think you heard you say it's at the airport. Oh well. Excuse me. Absolutely. Excuse me. It's at the Portland Raceway. I shall never say airport again. I'm corrected. Thank you. Albers Field Meet, thanks for the reminder. I had a persistent whistle when I first got my MGB. Cover the entire front end and seams with tape, no change. Finally, was able to determine it was the radio antenna. Solved the issue by leaning it slightly backwards. Is the kind of that sits on a ball, kind of ball where it meets the fender. So all I had to do is aim it just a little different because it was whipping and sending out a tune. I had a Welsh plug in the pop out last weekend, 1960 MGA. Think due to corrosion, all I couldn't find the ejected plug. Want to replace all the plugs. Was thinking of using a Dorman expandable freeze plug. Okay, well, hey, Dan, this is a project. I don't know if you're still on or not. You still on? You waited all
Yep.
this time?
Yeah, still here, John. Thanks.
Okay, this is a project. I mean, this is a project. So if you want to change those in place, you got to get some stuff out of the way, distributor cap and anything you might hit because you're down on, you maybe got to get the dynamo out of the way to get that front one in there. So there's one, two, three, doing it correctly and banging them using two hammers, one up against the core plug, put them in as dry as clean as you can get it. And hammer those things with holding the hammer against the concave part and hitting that hammer with yet another hammer, bang, bang, bang. It's just, there's so little room to do that on the right-hand side. So you end up having to put some old cardboard boxes and blankets down on the car so you can sort of approach it from the left-hand side lying down. I mean, that is a bugger to do.
That's why I'm looking into it. I was looking at these expansion plugs that you could
No.
twist with.
Well,
No.
okay, you can make a case for them, sure, but you should do it and do it right.
That's right.
So
I've got it. Yeah, I
next,
was looking at doing something before I had to pull the engine to do the clutch or something, but maybe.
So after you get those things flattened out a little bit, then mix up JB Weld and put it all around between where the hemisphere hits the block and just smear it around there with your finger. It looks real nasty and everything, but if you paint it later, nobody will ever see it.
Cool.
And that'll hold those freeze plugs in. But I don't think there's a way Barney's on. He'll tell us.
John?
How are you going to change the rear freeze plug?
Yeah, you can't do the rear.
Yeah, I'm on here. I can tell him how he can change those. I've done a bunch of those on the road. He did say the side middle plug, that's probably the easiest one to get to. If it's a front plug, you got to take off a generator and alternator, get it out of the way. If it's a rear plug, you got other things back there. Pull the distributor out. But just generally by taking the distributor cap off, I think you can get to the middle one. And you put a new core plug in there, and you get like a 3/4 inch diameter socket that covers half the diameter of the plug. You hold it with a pair of channel lock pliers so there's nothing else in the way. You get a 2-pound hammer and turn it sideways so it's thin and you can get a longer stroke. And then you can pound on this socket with a 2-pound hammer and just keep tapping on it and tapping on it until the core plug gets set in place, and it'll work.
Awesome.
How about the rear one? Is there any hope? Is there any hope of changing the one at the back of the block?
Well, you got to understand what's back there in line with it. You're talking about the heater valve on the head is in the way if you're approaching it from the top, and the distributor is definitely in the way. It's got to come out of there. You probably got to remove the steel pipe that goes to the oil filter.
Yeah,
the one on the side.
The one in the back of the engine.
The one in the back.
All the way in the back. Yeah.
The one in the back of the engine.
The one in the back.
Not the side.
Yeah, those are very difficult. That's where you carry the little Dorman plug with the nut on, and you push it in there and tighten it with a wrench.
There's Marty Gaylord, the MCA guru, making a case for the expandable freeze plug. Okay.
I don't know about the expandable freeze plug, but on my TD, on the X-Bag motor, the previous owner had put one that he bought from a plumbing supply house that was so thick that it was blocking the passage of water through the back of the engine. It was contributing to the overheating. And so when I took that out and put a proper, Tom Lanier brass freeze plugs in there, or whatever you call them, Welsh plugs, that helped tremendously. And then I did some other things that got rid of the overheating. on the TD, and I don't know if this guy's got an A. I don't know how the hell you do anything on it, but on the TD, we had to drop the fender, unbolt the fender, and take it down, pull the carburetors off. Then we used a 1-inch steel rod and an 8-pound sledgehammer just tapped, and that set the plugs properly.
Yeah, doing it in place is a project. Yep. Yeah. All right, Dan, you got lots of information to take away from that one. Gosh.
Yep, thanks, everyone.
Hey, like
I
five
got
different
one,
approaches, you know?
one more comment on the rear core plug. If you have an MGB engine and a gearbox to go with it, and you're using the engine rear plate for a B that has a high flange on the back end where you get 2 bolts into the cylinder head, also has a clearance hole in the back right in line with that rear core plug. You can use a thing called a Betson bolt, named after the guy who we understand first used it or first mentioned it. You take like an exhaust manifold, intake and exhaust manifold washer, the big heavy washers with a 5/16 clearance hole, and you drill it and tap it for a 3/8-inch bolt. You slide this big clearance washer in between the engine block and the rear plate, and you put the bolt through it, tighten up the bolt, and the clearance washer holds the bolt while you tighten the bolt up against the rear core plug and smash it into place with a bolt and a wrench.
And leave it there.
Yes,
So it doesn't pop out.
That only works on the B engine that's got the high rear plate on it.
Yeah, whole different engine. Yep. Yep. Should have mentioned that. But yeah, yeah. All right, here we go. Tom Gunderson, 57, MGA 1500. Is there any advantage to putting the top hat on my master cylinder? So when they came out with disc brakes, they added all this extra volume to the master cylinder because they weren't sure how fast people were going to go through brakes. They had a guess, but they overestimated the amount of fluid that the brakes use up when they get that they get used, how much extra brake fluid it takes, and they're all but unnecessary. So on a 1500 MGA with normal brakes, absolutely not. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's extra brake fluid, hey, you make a case for that. If there is a problem, you got a couple more pumps before total failure, than with the original. So